While Turkey has seen its impressive growth, it also faces challenges, namely controlling inflation and diversifying exports. I spoke to Klaus Larres from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and we talked about Turkey's central bank and if it's handling those challenges well.
Well, until recently it seemed that they were doing a good job, and now the Turkish economy has tanked from 8.5% down to 1.6%, and that is, of course, or that raises questions whether the central bank is doing its job. And on the 18th of December, so pretty soon, the Monetary Policy Committee of the central bank is going to have a meeting, and they will probably ease interest rates a little, but they can't ease them really too much because inflation is already at quite a high level. So I think it is an open question whether the central bank and the Monetary Policy Committee really has all that leeway to act.
As those rates stay lower, or perhaps they move them lower, the question of inflation keeps coming up in so many different economies. How much of this economic slowdown in Turkey is external driven versus what they're doing internally?
Well, really there are two main reasons. There's a slow domestic growth, a slow domestic demand, and there's of course a slowing export demand. And you could say that without the export performance of Turkey, the economy would actually have been contracted. And much of the export these days, or in the recent past, has actually been gold exports to Iran. And as you know, gold exports to Iran is highly controversial, particularly in the United States. The Senate, the American Senate, has only decided on Friday that they want to ban the export of precious metals, including gold, to Iran, and the House of Representatives will probably follow suit pretty soon, and that will, cut that part of the Turkish export industry away, and it will make life very difficult for Turkey and, of course, for Iran as well.
But within Europe, how much is the issues and the uncertainty around Europe, how much is that affecting some of the Turkish exports?
Quite a bit, quite a bit. A few years ago, the Turkish export industry to the EU was something like 57%. That has declined to something like 38% because of the weakness of the Eurozone and of the lack of demand in countries such as Germany. Germany still is Turkey's largest export partner, but it's probably going to be overtaken by Iraq next year. And what is happening in the Turkish economy is that they're trying to shift away from Europe and its lack of demand. They're looking increasingly towards the Middle East, but of course also to other countries such as in the Caucasus or China if possible, but particularly to the Middle East, like Iraq, like Iran.
You've highlighted a couple different risks to the overall economy. One you highlighted earlier, which was inflation, and the second, of course, is the slowdown in Europe. I'm just curious, which one is much more serious to worry about for 2013?
I think the European economy will gradually pick up again. So I think in that field, the Turkish outlook is maybe modestly optimistic, at least in the long run, for next year and the year after.
We talked about the central bank earlier. I mean, they are hand-tied because of the inflation issue. But if you were advising the central bank, what would you advise them to do regarding interest rates and policy?
Well, they should ease their monetary conditions and should lower interest rates a little bit, at least. I think that would be a sensible course, particularly in the short run, because at the moment there is a clear problem with the Turkish economy. But in the long run, with the US economy picking up, the fiscal cliff in the United States, which of course is a global problem at the moment, that probably will have been overcome by early next year. So I think the outlook, the medium to long-term outlook as far as the global economy is concerned, particularly in the Western world, in Europe and the United States, is modestly okay. And therefore the Turkish economy, after a rough stretch of time, will probably benefit from that as well.